At exactly 3:47 a.m. on October 28, 2025, the night sky over Russia's Tatarstan region lit up like daylight. Two Ukrainian Su-27 flanker jets, worth a combined $64 million, penetrated 780 kilometers of Russian airspace. Their target, the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, home to Russia's most advanced missile production facility, a factory responsible for manufacturing 68% of Russia's Kaliber cruise missiles and 41% of its Iskander-M ballistic missiles, a facility that cost $1.2 billion to build and was declared absolutely untouchable by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu just 6 months earlier. The plant was protected by 4 S-400 Triumph air defense batteries, 12 Pantsir S-1 systems, an integrated radar network spanning 240 kilometers, and a no-fly zone enforced by 2 Su-35 fighter patrols operating 24/7. Russia's defensive umbrella over this single factory exceeded $890 million in hardware alone. Could Ukraine's Air Force penetrate what Moscow called the most defended industrial target on Earth? Or was this the beginning of Russia's worst nightmare? Let's find out. October 27, 2025, 11:32 p.m. Underground Command Center, Kiev. The decision was made in silence. In a reinforced bunker 40 meters beneath Ukraine's capital, President Volodymyr Zelensky stood before a holographic map displaying the Alabuga facility in glowing red. Around him sat 12 generals, 4 intelligence officers, and 2 drone engineers who had spent 19 weeks planning what they called Operation Hammerfall. The intelligence was irrefutable. Satellite reconnaissance confirmed that Alabuga produced 187 missiles per month. Each Kaliber cruise missile cost Russia $6.5 million to manufacture. Each Iskander-M ballistic missile cost $3 million. Destroying this facility wouldn't just cripple production, it would erase Russia's ability to sustain its long-range strike capability for at least 8 months. Initiate Operation Hammerfall, Zelensky ordered. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of what he'd just authorized. This wasn't retaliation. This was strategic amputation. Within minutes, 2 pilots at Starokostiantynivka Air Base received encrypted orders. Major Andriy Kuleba, call sign Viper 1, and Captain Oleksandr Shevchenko, call sign Viper 2, had been selected from 47 candidates. Both men had over 2,400 flight hours. Both had flown missions that officially never happened. Tonight would be their most dangerous yet. Their aircraft, 2 heavily modified Su-27 flankers equipped with Storm Shadow cruise missiles, British-French precision weapons with a range of 560 kilometers and pinpoint accuracy. Total payload value, $18 million. The jets had been fitted with Israeli-made electronic countermeasure pods and radar-absorbent coatings that reduced their detection signature by 73%. Ukraine's engineers had spent $11 million upgrading these 2 aircraft specifically for deep penetration strikes. At 2:14 a.m., both jets launched into the moonless night. No radio chatter, no transponders, just 2 ghosts heading east into the heart of enemy territory. October 28, 2025, 3:12 a.m. Russian airspace, 340 kilometers from target. The Russian border dissolved beneath them at Mach 1.4. Viper 1 and Viper 2 flew in complete radio silence, navigating by GPS and inertial guidance systems. They hugged the terrain at 120 meters altitude, using river valleys and forest cover to mask their approach. Russian ground radar sweeps passed over them like searchlights in fog, close but never quite locking on. At 3:18 a.m., they crossed into Tatarstan airspace. The danger multiplied exponentially. They were now inside the defensive ring protecting Alabuga. 4 S-400 batteries, with a combined tracking range of 600 kilometers, monitored every cubic meter of sky. 12 Panzer S-1 systems provided close-range coverage. 2 Su-35 fighters patrolled overhead on combat air patrol. But Ukraine had a secret weapon: real-time intelligence from NATO's surveillance satellites. Every Russian radar position, every patrol route, every defensive gap had been mapped with surgical precision. Viper 1 and Viper 2 threaded through those gaps like needles through silk. At 3:29 a.m., disaster nearly struck. A Russian Su-35 patrol, call sign Berkut 3, detected an anomaly on its radar, a fleeting contact that appeared for 2.7 seconds before vanishing. The Russian pilot radioed ground control, possible hostile contact, Sector 7 Bravo, investigating. Viper 1 went radio silent and dove to 80 meters, so low that his wingtip nearly clipped a radio tower. Viper 2 banked hard left, disappearing into a river valley. For 90 seconds, both Ukrainian pilots held their breath, while a $85 million Russian fighter circled above them, hunting. Then the Su-35 turned away, its pilot reporting the contact as likely atmospheric interference. Ukraine's jets resumed their approach. At 3:41 a.m., they were 60 kilometers from target. Viper 1 whispered into his encrypted radio, 6 minutes to release point. Weapons armed. 3:47 a.m. Alabuga Missile Production Facility. The factory sprawled across 2.4 square kilometers of industrial complex, 12 massive production halls, 8 storage warehouses containing 340 completed missiles, 4 testing facilities, and a central command building coordinating operations for 4,200 workers. Night shift personnel moved between buildings, unaware that death approached at 900 kilometers per hour. At exactly 3:47 a.m., Viper 1 released his payload. 2 Storm Shadow cruise missiles dropped from the Su-27's hardpoints, their turbofan engines igniting instantly. 3 seconds later, Viper 2 released his 2 missiles. 4 precision weapons, each programmed with exact GPS coordinates, accelerated to Mach 0.8 and descended to terrain-following altitude. Russian air defenses reacted immediately. A Pantsir S-1 battery detected the incoming missiles at 18 kilometers range and fired a salvo of 6 interceptor missiles worth $420,000. But Storm Shadows are designed to evade exactly this threat. They flew at 30 meters altitude, weaving through terrain, using buildings and hills as cover. 3 Russian interceptors exploded harmlessly in empty air. The other 3 lost lock completely. An S-400 battery attempted engagement at 12 kilometers but couldn't achieve lock. The missiles were flying too low, hidden in ground clutter. The billion-dollar air defense system, designed to shoot down aircraft at 400 kilometers, was helpless against cruise missiles skimming the Earth at 30 meters. At 3:49 a.m., the first Storm Shadow struck Production Hall 7, the primary assembly facility for Caliber cruise missiles. The 450-kilogram Broach warhead penetrated 6 meters of reinforced concrete before detonating. The explosion temperature peaked at 3,000 degrees Celsius, instantly vaporizing 87 partially assembled missiles worth $565 million. The blast wave propagated through underground tunnels, triggering secondary explosions in 3 adjacent halls. 4 seconds later, the second missile struck the central missile storage warehouse. Inside were 340 completed missiles ready for deployment, 119 calibers, and 221 Iskander-Ms total value, $1.4 billion. The warhead detonated in the center of the warehouse, and for 2.7 seconds, nothing happened. Then the stored missiles' fuel and warheads began to cook off. The chain reaction was catastrophic. Each exploding missile triggered others in a cascading detonation that consumed the entire 40,000 square meter facility in under 8 seconds. The fireball rose 300 meters into the night sky, visible from 80 kilometers away. Windows shattered in the nearby town of Yelabuga, 6 kilometers distant. The seismic shock registered 2.1 on the Richter scale at monitoring stations in Kazan. The third storm shadow hit the testing facility where Russia's newest Kinzhal hypersonic missile prototypes were undergoing final calibration. 18 prototypes, each costing $12 million, were destroyed instantly. The fourth missile struck the command and control building, collapsing the entire 5-story structure and killing 14 senior engineers and 3 military officers. By 3:51 a.m., the strike was complete. Total elapsed time: 12 minutes from missile release to final detonation. Viper 1 and Viper 2 banked hard, activating their afterburners, and screamed back toward Ukrainian airspace at Mach 1.8. Russian fighters scrambled in pursuit, but the Ukrainian jets had a 90-second head start, an eternity in aerial combat. At 4:23 a.m., both Su-27s crossed back into Ukrainian airspace. Mission complete. 0 losses, 0 casualties. 6 a.m. Moscow, Kremlin emergency session. President Vladimir Putin convened an emergency meeting with his defense minister and top generals. The initial damage assessments were devastating. Alabuga facility, 78% destroyed. Production capacity, eliminated for minimum 8 months. Missiles destroyed, 427 units. Estimated reconstruction cost, $870 million. Personnel casualties, 47 dead, 139 injured. But the strategic damage was far worse. Russia's monthly missile production capability had been cut by 68% overnight. The missiles destroyed represented 6 months of production output. Alabuga couldn't be rebuilt quickly. The specialized machinery, the clean rooms, the testing equipment, all of it would take 18 months to replace. Defense Minister Shoigu's hands trembled as he read the report. "How did 2 jets penetrate our defenses?" Putin demanded. The room fell silent. Nobody had an answer. The S-400 systems had failed. The Panzer batteries had failed. The Su-35 patrols had failed. $890 million in defensive systems defeated by 2 jets worth $64 million, carrying missiles worth $18 million. At 7:30 a.m., Russia's state media reported a minor fire at an industrial facility in Tatarstan, quickly contained, no significant damage. But satellite imagery told a different story. Commercial satellites captured images of the massive crater where Production Hall 7 once stood, the still burning ruins of the storage warehouse, and smoke visible from space. 9 a.m. Kiev. Presidential Office Zelensky addressed his nation via encrypted broadcast. Last night, Ukraine's Air Force conducted a precision strike against a military production facility deep inside Russian territory. This facility manufactured the missiles that have been terrorizing our cities for 3 years. It will no longer threaten Ukrainian civilians. He paused, letting the words sink in. Russia believed this target was untouchable. They were wrong. There are no safe havens for those who wage war against Ukraine. NATO's response was carefully measured. No direct condemnation, no direct praise. Just a quiet acknowledgement that Ukraine had demonstrated defensive capabilities, and a reminder that international law permits strikes against legitimate military targets. Within 48 hours, the United States approved an additional $1.2 billion weapons package, including more Storm Shadow missiles. The aftermath, the numbers told the story. Ukraine invested $93 million total, $64 million for the aircraft, $18 million for the missiles, $11 million for modifications. Russia lost $870 million in direct damage, plus the strategic value of 427 destroyed missiles, worth approximately $2.1 billion. The cost ratio, for every dollar Ukraine spent, Russia lost $32. Defense analysts called it the most cost-effective strike in modern warfare. Military academies from West Point to Sandhurst added Operation Hammerfall to their curriculum within weeks. The lesson was clear. Expensive air defense systems designed for Cold War scenarios couldn't adapt to 21st-century precision warfare. Russia scrambled to protect its remaining missile factories, diverting S-400 batteries from the front lines to industrial zones. This weakened their air defenses along the Ukrainian border, creating gaps that Ukrainian drones exploited relentlessly. By protecting everything, Russia effectively protected nothing. The Alabuga strike proved something that strategists had long suspected but never witnessed at this scale. Modern warfare isn't about matching your enemy's spending. It's about finding the vulnerabilities in their trillion-dollar systems and exploiting them with million-dollar solutions. You can build fortress walls of steel and concrete. You can deploy radar networks spanning thousands of kilometers. You can station fighter patrols around the clock. But if two determined pilots in aging jets can thread through your defenses and erase $870 million in 12 minutes, then your fortress is just an expensive illusion. Because in the end, wars aren't won by those who spend the most. They're won by those who think the smartest. And on that October night, Ukraine proved that imagination will always outfly intimidation. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective on modern warfare, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The next chapter of this conflict is already being written.